What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new, and if you are new, hit subscribe down below, and if you haven't yet, catch up on Vlogmas because I've been doing a video every day in December and there are more to come. So yeah, welcome back to Vlogmas. Okay, today's Vlogmas video is something that I did last year, I'm pretty sure, and I'll probably do year after year because I think it's a really fun concept and I love watching them to get recommendations. So I'm going to talk about every book I read in 2023 and I'm going to rate it. So every year my goal is to read 12 books. That is one book per month, so usually I don't meet it. It feels attainable to me, but then I get so busy throughout the year that I just come shy, like 10 out of 12 books. Year after year, and this year I think is the first year I've ever exceeded my goal. So I read 14 books this year and the year's not over yet. I really do think I'm gonna finish a couple more soon. So let's just dive right in. We're gonna start with this book. This is called What If? Short Stories to Spark Inclusion and Diversity Dialogue. So this was a work book club. You'll see a theme throughout that I read a lot of books with my work book club, and that's a huge reason why I met my goal this year, because we read them together and then we do a discussion, which is so fun. So this is by Steve L. Robbins, PhD, doctor. This was a lot of short stories, which it says on the cover. It says short stories to spark dialogue. However, I didn't know what to expect going into it. You can see I have two tabs at the top of little stories that resonated with me. And now that I read them, I realize I don't remember what they are, so they didn't stick with me. I am just gonna cut to the chase. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. It was okay. I felt like there were some good stories, and then there was other stuff that I was just like, this is redundant or silly, or I get the point, like let's move on. So overall, I would probably not recommend. And I hate to say that because it really is, it's a good book, and I think for the right person, it's a great story, but I wanted a little bit more from it. So the second book, and by the way, the further I get from these books, the less I remember about them, and when I rate them on Goodreads, I just do a star rating. I never write a description, so maybe my New Year resolution should be to write an actual review so that I remember better. But anyway, we're getting on to a weird kind of place of reading that I was in this year, which was reading books on my phone, which isn't that weird, but I read a lot of free books on my phone. That's where it gets weird. There are these like random books that will just be for free on the little Samsung, I think it's Samsung Books or Google Play Books. So the Google Books app, they have some weird stories. So one that I read is called The Bakery on the Cove by Eliza Esther. I rated it 2 out of 5. I'm not even gonna dive in. It was just silly. Probably, yeah, I don't recommend. Next book, I don't have it in person because I borrowed it from my friend Marissa, so shout out to her, who I do my podcast with. And this was my intro into Colleen Hoover, who was very popular this year and popular in other years too, but I feel like she really had quite the social media chokehold on everyone this year. So my first Colleen Hoover book I read was Verity. This was very good. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I feel like that's a little generous. Maybe if I were rating it out of 10, I would have gone just slightly lower than perfect, but it was a really good read and I do recommend it. Next is another phone book that I'm not going to read the description for because I don't recommend it and it was whatever. It's called The Island House by Elena Johnson and Bonnie R. Paulson. 2 out of 5. Next, we have another Colleen Hoover. This might be controversial and this one was popular and it wasn't my favorite. This is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This one was okay. I will say, I'm not gonna say if I recommend it or not. If you like the idea of the story, read it, and if you don't. I think that it was a little cheesy. A lot of the details were really hard for me to grasp. The main character's age was so unrealistic to me with the setting of the book, and a lot of it I just didn't like in my mind. My brain would not accept a lot of what she wrote, so 3 out of 5. Here is a real winner for me. This is on my top books of the year, one of my top books ever. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This book was so good. This is just the dust cover because Angela's actually reading it now, but this is absolutely one of my favorite books I've ever read. Let's see if I can give you the really brief description. In this exhilarating novel, two friends, often in love but never lovers, come together as creative partners in the world of video game design, where success brings them fame, joy, tragedy, duplicity, and ultimately a kind of immortality. Just read it, okay? 5 out of 5, would recommend, would recommend, would recommend. It was a huge book. I couldn't put it down. I loved it. I read it so quick, and it's a great book. It's just my favorite, so I highly recommend it. Especially if you have a little bit of video game nostalgia and things to bring you back. There are so many cool references, but I also have to say, like, you don't have to be a huge video game fan to enjoy the book. It was just an amazing story. Next one is A Summer Affair by Ellen Hildebrand. Ellen Hildebrand is supposed to be like a really good author or a summer romance novel kind of vibe. And this book was okay to me. I thought it was pretty standard. A little bit of it, again, was unrealistic. So I love fiction. This is the problem that I have. I love fiction. I love a fake story, a novel, a love story, if you will. But I also wanted to feel really super realistic. And this one just didn't to me. There was like a few missing pieces. I gave this 3 out of 5. Next story, completely opposite of that. This is another top book of 2023. This is up there with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and this one is a little bit cheesy and very like romance novel-esque, very easy read, beachy read, but I loved it. This one was so good. This is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I want to read it again. Like, I never feel that way about a book, but the way I feel about this book is kind of the way I feel about the TV show Gilmore Girls. I just love it. It's almost nostalgic to me. That felt nostalgic to like the best parts of my like growing up, childhood, teen years. I loved it. 5 out of 5. Highly recommend. I love this. Okay, next one. This is a unique feature because my CEO wrote this, the CEO of the company I work at. This is The Fast Forward Mindset by David Schnurman. I read this year. I was supposed to read it last year, but I never finished it. So I finally finished it this year. This is a really fun read. It's a more like self-help category. So this one's super cool, especially because not only did my CEO write it, people who work at my company still to this day are in the book and there's stories about them, and I find that so fascinating and so cool, and you really get a different perspective on the people you work with when that happens. So kind of a rare occurrence, probably not a shared experience from many, but definitely check it out. It is also on sale on Amazon right now, so Fast Forward Mindset. Next one is, again, this is, if I had to pick a top 3 of the year, I would say that my top 3 were Every Summer After, Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, and Mad Honey. This book was so good. This is Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult. I don't know how to say her name. It's the same author who wrote My Sister's Keeper, which is also a movie, a great movie. I have not read the book, but this book was so awesome. Super long description, but it says a soul-stirring novel about what we choose to keep from our past and what we choose to leave behind. This is not a spoiler, but this book starts off with a mother who's raising her teenage son. He's in high school and he gets arrested for the murder of his girlfriend, and the whole book is kind of a story of whether or not he's guilty, the people around him, and if they think he's guilty, his experience going through the justice system, etc. It's really, really, really good. You get a fair amount of mystery while also getting like that fiction feel. And yeah, it was just a really good book. I don't want to spoil it and the descriptions are so long, but I highly recommend Mad Honey. It was an amazing book. Next, 5 Total Strangers. This was, oh, I should also mention, these 2 books are books on my podcast's book club. So We Run on Coffee is my podcast, and we host a quarterly book club where we read a book and then discuss. So that was really awesome. This was Marissa's pick, 5 Total Strangers. This is about a girl who is flying home to her family for the holidays, and on her connecting flight, her final flight home gets canceled because of the snow, and she decides to rent a car with 5 total strangers to drive there. This is a closed room mystery or closed room thriller, I think Marissa said is the term, and it was really good. I liked it a lot. There was a little bit of cheesiness, and that's the only reason I marked it down, but I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I would definitely recommend it. I think it's a fun read, especially in winter. Okay, I just completely changed clothes. I had to take off my sweatshirt because I was too hot, and I'm also about to go to dance. But anyways, let's continue on the list. I only have 3 more reads. So next one is another Colleen Hoover, Ugly Love. So I read a lot of well, a lot, I mean 4 Colleen Hoover books this year. 3 of them I borrowed from Marissa, and then 1 was our book club, It Ends With Us, which was not my favorite of any of them. But Ugly Love, I loved. I gave it 5 out of 5. Again, if it were on a like out of 10, I feel like I could be a little more precise, and I wouldn't probably say it's a perfect book. It's not up there with my top 3, but a great read nonetheless, and I really liked it. So I would recommend Ugly Love. Next book is a real true classic, I feel like. I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Now this I did with Angelo, so I actually read this the entire book out loud, and Angelo kind of got a live audiobook experience from me because we read this and then his mom read it as well, and we all kind of discussed, which was so fun, like a mini book club. And it was super slow to start for me. It was really hard for me to get into, but by the end I was hooked. I wanted to know what was going to happen, and now I want to read the second book. This is an autobiography of Maya Angelou's life, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I just want to say 5 out of 5. Very, very good book, and I would highly recommend. I feel like everyone should read it just to understand the stories and understand her life. And I really want to read the next one. I know she's written a lot of books, so this was so good and I loved it. Okay, last book that I've actually read to completion this year. Like I said, I'm sure I'll finish a few more, but this one is another Colleen Hoover, so I have to throw it in because I'm done with it. This was November 9, and I remember that Marissa specifically told me I had to read this one after Ugly Love because the characters from Ugly Love make a little appearance in this book, so I'm glad I did that, and I had a little bit of background, which is kind of fun. This was so good. I loved it. 4 out of 5. I don't know why I didn't give it 5. I think I just wanted a little bit more from the ending, and overall I liked the concept though. The fact that they met on the same day every year for a certain number of years, it was a really cool concept, and I liked that there was nothing in between. They didn't give us like a bunch of annoying details. We got what we needed. So overall I liked it. 4 out of 5, and I would recommend you read it. Okay, so that is all the books I've read this year. I will say I'm currently reading Lessons in Chemistry, which I think is going to be up there with my top ones if I finish it. And then I also purchased Fourth Wing. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to because, yeah, I'm really excited. And then last shout out is that for my podcast book club, Q1 of 2024, so the episode will be out in the new year, we are reading The Secret Life of Addie LaRue. Marissa picked this, but it's been on my want to read list, and I've heard good things. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed learning about the books I've read this year, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!